Disturbing talk floated from village to village. The whispers and claims were all the same. Girls would go, and they'd never be seen again. Only the poorest, only seeking the lowliest of possible work, peasant girls would bring themselves to Castle Csejte and simply disappear. Yet the talk wouldn't die down, and the rumors swirled. Innocent girls were going to Countess Bathory's Castle Csejte and were being tortured. Welcome to History on Fleek. Today we examine the Blood Countess and the unspeakable fates of her maidens. Elizabeth Bathory was born to the Hungarian nobility in 1560. Her father was voivode of Transylvania, and her mother was niece to the King of Poland. It may come as no surprise, Elizabeth spent her childhood raised in a castle. In a typical political arrangement of royal marriage for the Middle Ages, Bathory was engaged to marry at 13 years old to Count Ferenc Nadasdy. In 1575, the pair were married, and as a result, the couple's estate included the land of both Transylvania and Hungary. Nadasdy's wedding gift to his betrothed was the Castle Csejte. Nadasdy was a war hero and commander of the Hungarian forces. In 1578, he was to begin a military endeavor against the formidable Ottoman Empire. This left Elizabeth in control of his estates and governing responsibilities. However, terrible rumors would soon spread through the kingdom, starting with the mistreatment of Elizabeth's servants. The rumors had started circulating before Elizabeth was even left in charge of her husband's estate. In what would be Trenčín, Slovakia to modern-day sensibilities, strange happenings were noticed by the locals. It's been said that local peasant girls had been looking for and hoping to work as servants at the Countess's Csejte castle. However, local peasant girls with such aspirations began to disappear. More disturbingly, no one could say why. Increasingly across the kingdom, the Countess was alleged to be torturing her own servants. When Count Nadasdy died in 1604, the rumors gained traction and began to escalate. What had been a wild rumor of misconduct had turned much darker. Elizabeth Bathory was accused of killing hundreds of women and girls who came to Csejte Castle. Word surrounding the Countess was at fever pitch. Its details were chilling. Witnesses would state that the Countess committed her crimes from 1590 to 1610. Though her first victims were alleged to be the poorest of peasant girls hoping for servant work at her castle, Elizabeth Bathory's predatory behavior would escalate. Rumor would tell you the Countess had young local girls kidnapped who had no intention of coming to the castle. Furthermore, the Countess didn't just prey on the poorest, she killed daughters of the nobility staying at the castle for their education. By the time the law caught up with Elizabeth Bathory, legend would tell you she had over 600 murders to her name. Yet it was not the amount of bloodshed that caught the authorities' attention. It was who was missing. By 1610, several young women of noble birth were missing or dead. King Matthias II of Hungary sent György Thurzó to investigate the claims against the Countess. In just under 7 months, 52 witness statements had been collected. By the turn of 1611, the number of witness statements had grown to 300. On December 30th of 1610, Elizabeth Bathory was arrested, as were 4 of her servants. So what exactly did Elizabeth Bathory do to her victims? If you listen to the rumors and legend, just about everything. The hearsay surrounding the Countess's unspeakable acts included her beating women to death with clubs, using hot irons to burn them, and sticking needles beneath their fingernails. And that was just for starters. Other rumors would claim she would pour ice water over her victims and leave them to freeze to death in the cold. Some stated that she would cover their bodies in honey so insects would feast on their sweetened skin. Yet even more extreme allegations were abound. Speculator mutilation was a common theme of the allegations against the Countess. Grim details suggested she would sew her victims' lips together and physically bite the flesh from their bodies. Witness statements would claim Bathory fetishized using scissors on her victims' bodies as well. She was said to cut off their noses, hands, and even their genitals. Yet somehow, the allegations didn't end there. At their most heightened and frightened, accusations against Elizabeth Bathory included her being a vampire, no less. It's reported a witness statement would declare that they had seen the Countess having sex with the devil. Imagine that, getting hold of the devil before speed dial or social media. At their most spectacular, one rumor steeped in the supernatural claimed the Countess would bathe in the blood of her victims. This was all to maintain her youthful beauty, it was alleged. Yet all this does raise the question, was it true? Many elements of the legendary Blood Countess have come to be seen as fiction. A prime example of this was the witness claim of Bathory having a diary that contained details of all 650 victims. This has since been uncovered as entirely false. The supernatural claim of the Countess bathing in blood has been uncovered as only coming into print after Bathory had been dead for over 100 years. Even the investigator Thurzo was embroiled in a wild rumor later debunked that upon arriving to arrest the Countess, he walked in on her covered in blood. It appeared there was much embellishment and fiction surrounding the Countess and her reputation. It should be stated when it came time for her to be put on trial, Thurzo was only able to charge the Countess with the deaths of 80 girls, not the miraculous figure of 650. That's not to dismiss the quite chilling figure of 80 murders to the Countess's name, yet there was clearly an appetite for an even grander narrative, begging the question, why? While Elizabeth Bathory was sentenced for her crime, she was not sentenced to death. Her sentence was to be isolated and kept under house arrest at Csejte Castle. She would remain there until she passed in 1614. Curiously, despite all the furor surrounding the corrupt Countess, she was not sentenced to death. All 4 of her fellow arrestees were tortured or even burnt at the stake. Yet the Countess, for all her unimaginable bloodshed, was not. Could this case be more complicated than one might believe on first reading? Historians have come to note that King Matthias II was in fact indebted to the Countess's deceased husband, Count Nadasdy. The debt is said to have been considerable, and the king entirely uninterested in paying it. It is possible the king wished to incriminate the Countess to destroy her reputation and clear himself any obligation to pay such a debt. What is more possible, as historians have commented, between her estate, land, and heritage, Elizabeth Bathory presented a threat to the crown. The crown went out to derail her. Do you think the Blood Countess bathed in the blood of hundreds of victims, or are we hearing the embellishment in the tale of a no doubt abusive and somewhat unpopular female leader? This is History on Fleek, and we'll see you next time.